We're back for real.
Fantasy Labs, I'm Pete.
I'm Jeremy. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm just gonna quickly scoot through the intro, guys. So this is the show where we talk about homebrew and real brew, Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Pro brew. Yeah, that's it. We're talking about lots of stuff that is pro brew tonight, which is to say we're going to be talking about, I got it right here, we're going to be talking about Icewind Dale, the Rime of the Frostmaiden. It is, spoilers, it is really good. And then we're going to be talking about some of the leaks from, or I guess not leaks, previews from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which are very cool. And yeah, we got a couple community things to go over. Not too much tonight, but yeah, we got a great show lined up. I'm excited to talk about everything that we have to talk about.
Yeah, I am as well. I'm very excited for tonight. Pete mentioned spoilers. Icewind Dale. Our conversation tonight's actually gonna be pretty spoiler light. There's gonna be very, very little that we talk about that a person playing this adventure would not learn about in like the first session of the game. So that's kind of an important thing. We're going to try and keep this very, very spoiler friendly so that if you ever wanted to or think of playing in this adventure, or maybe or think about running it, which we got a lot to talk about in terms of running the adventure, yeah, hopefully you should be fine watching what we're doing. But Pete, before we diving into that, what are we going to kick it off with?
Let's do the 10 Towns Ranger last, because that's going to be just a nice.
That's kind of a good tie-in, yeah.
Yeah.
So hello, chat.
Let's start off talking about this the Shuffler Artificer, which I forgot to put up in the chat here, but that was by Jin Hall.
So I'll say, Jin Hall, yeah, is that mine? I see. It is, in fact, yours, Jin. And I'll say, you really took a challenging one with the Artificer is maybe the most complicated class in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a very,
I don't know
very
that
bold.
much about the Artificer myself.
Yeah, it's actually something I'm not particularly well versed in either. So I wouldn't worry, Jin. Again, this whole thing, this whole kind of show that we run here is about learning and becoming better and just learning by doing, basically. If you don't take those steps and you don't try and fail, you don't ever succeed. That being said, I haven't read it yet. It probably is pretty good. I suspect it'll be fine. My cat is being a brat somewhere, but we'll worry about him later. But you want to start us off with the Shuffler?
Yeah, the Shuffler. You see here, there's no flavor text yet, but just reading ahead, I can tell that this is it very heavily plays into cards, which is why the term Shuffler is used. So this Artificer makes cards. I mean, we'll find out, but it looks like they make different cards that do different things. Which, like all Artificers, it gets a tool proficiency. So when you adopt this specialization at 3rd level, you gain proficiency with either calligrapher supplies or painter supplies. If you already have this proficiency, you gain proficiency with another type of artisan tools of your choice. I believe that is all completely standard for an Artificer, Jeremy? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I've got no idea. I didn't know they had this option to gain a different proficiency if they already had one, but I like it.
Yes, that is. So, like, the Battlesmith gets Smith's tools, and if you already have it, you gain a different one.
Cool. Jin, one thing I would recommend is I would just probably pick one. I'd just say calligrapher's tools or painter supplies, and just pick whichever one you think is best. That's kind of my thoughts on it, but I mean, this is also fine given the option. Also, I know that you're in the chat, Jin. If you have any extra context for us to think about, is this based on a class in a game? I know Final Fantasy has I think it's the Astrologian with card. I don't know anything about Final Fantasy or actually a lot of media. So if there's something that this is referencing in some way, do let us know. Or if you have a vision for it.
If you're making this because you're planning on running it in a game or something like that, then let us know about the game and stuff like that, so we can give you have a little bit more context for what it was made for. But do you want to take the spells, Jeremy? Yeah,
so Shuffler spells. Starting at 3rd level, you always have certain spells prepared after you reach particular levels in this class, as shown on the Shuffler spells table. These spells count as an Artificer spells for you, but they don't count against the number of Artificer spells you prepare. And they're Cure Wounds and Detect Magic at 3rd level, Heat Metal and Sea Invisibility at 5th level, Dispel Magic and Haste at 9th level, Aura of Purity and Death Ward at 13th level, and Telekinesis and Big B's Hand at 17th level. And you gave a little note, the spell was subject to change for the reasons that I am new to this and I don't know all the spells. Don't even worry about it. I can tell you right now, based on what you picked here, this is giving me a lot of information about what this class, what you envision this class accomplishing. Right, you've got a little bit of healing, a little bit of like utility stuff with detect magic, the invisibility, spell magic, etc. I can see this definitely being a very supporty kind of
very all-around, very all-rounder.
Yeah, they can do a little bit of everything, but their main focus is empowering others, right, and always having a tool for the job. That's kind of what it's looking like to me.
Yeah, I'm curious about. I wonder if Big B's hand is because it's a big hand that could throw playing cards. I'm curious because Jim Hall was saying, based on my favorite trope, which is fighting with playing cards. Yeah, there's a lot of your gambits and your twisted fates and. But yeah, let's look at the support cards here because I think this is the key feature of.
Oh my goodness! It says support cards right under it. Holy crap! I'm blind.
This is the key feature of this subclass. Beginning at 3rd level, whenever you finish a long rest, you can magically produce up to 1d4 support cards, and you can hold up to 8 cards. Roll on the support card table to determine the card's effect, which is triggered by a command word you set. The command word only activates cards that leave your hand, so you don't have to worry about stored cards going off. The cards can be thrown or placed. You can use one card as an action or bonus action, no matter the effect. And then we'll learn more about them, but I'll take this. Creating a support card requires you to have Tinker's tools on your person, and any card you create with this feature lasts until it is used. When you reach certain levels in this class, you can make more cards at the end of a long rest. Additionally, you can hold more cards. You can make up to 1d6 and hold 12 at 6th level. You can make up to 1d8 and hold 16 at 15th level, and make 1d10 and hold 20 at 20th level. And you roll for each card's effect separately. Looks like there's a little bit more here. You can create an additional 2 cards using a spell slot of the 1st level, and 2 more per spell slot level. When you do so, you choose the card's effect from the support card table. Okay, so if you make one from the spell slot, you get to pick what the effects are. Cool. So this is the effect, and then there's the actual cards. Yeah, I believe otherwise you roll for the cards that you get.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we'll go into the effects first. But do you want to talk about this a little bit, Jeremy, before we go into the effects?
Yeah, so I really like this conceptually. Actually, there was really one red flag. One thing I didn't like was that it was 1d4 support cards that you can produce. I get maybe it's okay. I guess it depends on how powerful they end up being. But typically, I wouldn't want to put that kind of RNG, especially on like a long rest cooldown. Right? If it were like on the end of a short rest, you roll a d4. Okay, well, if I roll a 1 this time, at least I'm going to have another short rest fairly soon, and I'll get to roll again and get different ones. But, yeah, putting that 1d4 uses on a long rest cooldown is just... I think it might be a little bit too random. I'd rather say maybe a number of cards equal to your proficiency bonus, if you want to keep it low.
Yeah.
Or maybe your ability...
You could do, intelligence modifier, or... whatever it is.
But that's a lot, so I don't know how powerful these are.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think that there's an extra degree of tracking complexity with this that I think would be a little bit cumbersome if you were actually playing it, and a little bit kind of confusing for the DM too, which is that, for one thing, the cards that you create with spell slots are different than the ones that you create normally, because the ones you create with spell slots have...
you choose.
Yeah, you get to pick versus you don't pick for the other ones. Also, from just a flavor standpoint, it does seem strange that the ones that you make more slowly are random, but the ones that you kind of like conjure are not. Some action economy would be helpful as well for the cards that you create with the spell slot, because I actually assumed it looks like you just do that when it should be specified when you make the cards with the spell slot, if that's when you complete the long rest, if you can spend the spell slot to make extra ones, or if you just can do that anytime.
Yeah, you also might want to put somewhere in here that if the cards aren't used by the time you finish, I guess, the next long rest, that they go away, right? That way you can't just, or maybe that's your point, is you can accumulate them over frequent long rests. Maybe, I'm not sure exactly.
That does actually seem to be an idea, because it's specified here that you can hold 8 cards, but you make a D4, implying that you would, like, get more of them over time.
I thought that was because you could create more with the...
Oh, okay. I agree with Jeremy, though. I think a better direction, I would actually even kind of get rid of the hold mechanic and just say that, like, you lose any cards at the end of a long rest, because that's just an extra degree of tracking that I feel like you don't super need. But yeah, I'm excited to actually read the actual cards here and see what they do.
Yeah, I've cheated. I've looked ahead a little bit, and I've got a couple of bits of advice. But first, let's go through them. Pete, you want me? I'll read the first 4. You hit the last 4.
Sounds great.
Your cards are Heart. A soft green glow forms a small dome from the card. Shield. A spectral shield rises from the card in front of the afflicted creature. Sword. The card explodes. And Cloud. A thick gray smoke issues from the card. And those effects, respectively, for Heart are: the creature gains hit points equal to 2d4 plus your int modifier. Shield. The creature gains an armor class bonus equal to 1 plus your intelligence modifier for 1 minute. Sword. The card, which is the creature makes a dex save against your spell save DC, and on a failed, it takes some force damage. It's pushed 10 feet backwards, and on a success, it takes half damage if it's not pushed. And Cloud. A 10-foot sphere of smoke appears from the point where the card is, and all creatures in the smoke have disadvantage on attack rolls.
The next 4 are I. The card emits a harsh, bright light. The creature makes a dex saving throw against your spell casting DC. On a failed save, it is blinded for 1d4 rounds. On a success, it is not blinded and turns its attention on you. Skull. A cloud of green gas issues from the card. The creature makes a Constitution saving throw against your spell casting DC. On a fail, it takes 2d4 damage and is poisoned for 1d4 rounds. On a success, it takes half damage and is not poisoned. Bell. A loud clanging erupts from the card. The creature makes a Constitution saving throw against your spellcasting DC, and on a fail, it takes 2d4 psychic damage and is deafened for 1d4 rounds. On success, it takes half damage and is not deafened. And 8. The Cage. The card turns into a net and springs onto the creature. I like that. The creature makes a dexterity saving throw against your spellcasting DC. On a fail, it is trapped by the net and is knocked prone for 1d4 rounds as it tries to get out. On a success, it is not knocked prone and it turns its attention on you. Cool. You got a nice array here with the general theme kind of being. With a couple of exceptions, there's the Heart and Shield, but for the most part, they seem to be very crowd control centric effects.
Yeah, I think my couple. I'm sorry, Pete. Did you have more on that? Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I like where you were going here. I think one of the things that you want to do, because this subclass you've created so far with the support cards is very similar to the Alchemist, actually creating its experimental elixirs that have a similar. It's a D6 table with some effects. Now the Alchemist elixirs are all focused on really like healing and buffing up the whatever creature drinks the elixir. It doesn't really do anything to attack enemies, and I think that was a really good direction you took here to differentiate this in a meaningful way, even though it had a similar mechanic. Is making a lot of these, offensive tools. That being said, a couple of these are just very mainly the shield.
The healing one.
The shield is way too strong.
Yeah, the shield is very, very powerful.
The healing I'm almost okay with if these are randomized, right? Like you get random cards.
I was just saying the healing one is very similar to the Alchemist healing one. I think it's actually the same effect.
It is, and I think I'm okay with there being a little overlap on something like healing, right? That works for me. But stuff like the shield is just a way better version of what the Alchemist can already do.
Yep.
On more uses and
assuming you have maxed out your intelligence, a +6 boon to armor class that stacks with other armor class bonuses is really crazy.
Wild.
Even like a +1 bonus is really powerful. So. That would definitely have to be adjusted in a balanced sense. Another thing,
The rest of it seemed pretty good.
yeah, well, there's one mechanic I would suggest, or actually, I guess two mechanics here I suggest you shy away from. The phrase "it turns its attention on you." I get what you're
Mhm.
going for there, with the idea that if it fails, that they kind of aggro you. That has a lot of kind of unintended like that's actually almost an extra layer of CC, even though it's intended to be a downside. Also, technically, turns its attention on you isn't a keyword in 5e, so I think there's some people, if you know, if it works for, if this is for a home game per se, stuff like that's fine because you as the DM know what that means. But that's not like a keyword in 5e, so you'd have to come up with a different way of phrasing it if you want it to have that effect.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would stay away from that 1d4 rounds thing, and instead just make it either one round, especially for the frequency with which you can use these. I would even say just one round. But if you want to do longer, I would do a save ends rather than just a rolled number.
Yeah, or you could even look at like the net. A net is an item in the or in the player's handbook, and it turns into a net, and it is, roll a dex save or be trapped by the net, and then just look at the definition of a net. While trapped in the net, it's restrained. The net has an armor class and hit points, and they can try to use an escape DC, against your spell save DC to get out on their turn. I think that's another very easy to understand way to do it, right? Any player that's used a net before will now understand, all right, this is just a net that uses my spell save DC. So I think there's a good kind of intuition aspect there.
I
Yeah, you
would
get a
also,
lot of randomness on the number of rounds that these things affect. That might be something to try and homogenize, like what Pete was saying.
one last piece of language that might need to be cleaned up. I get the idea for the action, to go back to the previous thing, the action or bonus action to throw a card, but it says the cards can be thrown or placed. I would probably, you're better off just can be thrown at a creature within 30 feet of you, or just like some kind of range for it to indicate like
Definitely needs a range.
where you can. And I would also just specify that you should probably just make it targeting a creature rather than like, I think it's for that one smoke one, so you can like throw it on the ground in a certain area, but you might be better off specifying that it has to target a creature. But that's all I got for that. Want to go on to the 5th level feature here?
Yeah. Let's. Well, actually, I have one thing about the cloud. So the way that you have it written right there is all creatures in the smoke have disadvantage on attack rolls. It really doesn't. Okay, what if I walk out of the smoke? Do I still have disadvantage on my attack rolls that turn? The language you might want is a creature that starts its turn within the smoke has disadvantage on attack rolls that turn. Right? Or look toward a spell like Stinking Cloud or something like that, that might have an actual like effect that might do kind of more like what you were looking for.
Jin was saying, what was a good substitution to it, would you say? I'm not sure when you wrote that.
I think that was to the shield.
Okay.
What we were talking about the shield. Yeah, Jin, I think it's just, you've got 8 different effects and they roll for them, and there's a lot of rolling, a lot of random rolling here. And I think you just want to try and cut it down. I think it's okay
reduce
if
randomness when you
maybe
can.
like 6 of these. But anyway,
yeah. So that is well. Let's look at adept, or I'm sorry, a lucky draw here. At 5th level, your luck increases and seeps into your support cards as you create them. Pick at least 2 of the cards from the Heart, Sword, Skull, Bell category that you create during a long rest and add 1 die to its effect. This effect cannot be applied to cards that are already created, and it lasts until the cards are used or until you use this feature again at the next long rest, and it can't be used on cards created using spell slots. I think that I like the idea of you scaling the damage on the cards a little bit. I don't know if this is precisely the way to do it. For one thing, I wouldn't make the specification, because I think you're getting into that same complication where it was like, what's the difference between the spell created cards and the other ones? I wouldn't add another layer to that by differentiating them further here. I would just say it's all the cards. Get an extra dice. And maybe that's something that you bake into the original thing. Maybe there's just like a floating damage die, like damage dealt by cards increased to this and this at different levels.
Even that, right? Maybe this could be right as a special action, right? You create you instantly create a new card, roll for its effect, and increase its effect, its die by a d4, right?
Yeah, that might be the way to
doing it too.
Yeah, it might be a way to work in the spell slot thing if you want to do it. Like, you can expend a spell slot to just make a card that you want and throw it as a part of the bonus action.
Yeah.
Might be a good way to go.
That'd be a very cool way of rolling it.
But cool, that's lucky draw.
One thing I do want to say, Jin, really well written. You've definitely taken a lot of effort to make this both easy to read and understand what you're going for, and we very much appreciate that.
For sure.
Hopefully, what we're saying is helpful at all to you. Mind if I start with Adept Dealer?
Yeah, take Adept Dealer, Jeremy.
Starting at 9th level, you've grown accustomed to throwing your cards. If a creature is fighting something other than you, when you throw a card at them, you can impose disadvantage on their saving throw for the card's effect. Okay. If the creature's attention is on you, you must make a sleight of hand check and can impose disadvantage on a success. You can use it instead of your dex modifier for sleight of hand. Okay. Saving throw for the card's effect. Okay, I see. Additionally, the speed at which you draw cards has become second nature to you and seeps into other aspects of your life. When a creature gets within melee range of you, you can make an opportunity attack with a cantrip as a reaction. And you can use the feature number of times equal to your intelligence modifier and regain all extended uses when you finish a long rest. All right, I actually really like that cantrip kind of reaction.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Works for me. I think both in the narrative and cool effect. In terms of this Adept Dealer, it took me like a couple of reads to I think comprehend what you were going for here. And I think the problem here is in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, there is not a defined mechanic for if a creature's attention is on you. That's just not a mechanical aspect of the game. Creatures are expected to be able to see, in all directions around them, unless they explicitly are averting their gaze from a creature. In the case of like a basilisk or a Medusa. And the idea behind that isn't that you have eyes all over your head and you're looking at all directions at once. It's that a round is 6 seconds, and in that 6 seconds in combat, right, you're looking around and you're aware of your surroundings. So I think, this is a tough one.
It's also very powerful to put a disadvantage on like a hard CC effect, which a lot of them are, in particular, like Poisoned and Blinded are both really powerful effects like that. And one other note, you can use this feature equal to half your level rounded down plus your int modifier. I would do one or the other on that for one thing.
I think that actually is convention on some of the artificers.
Is that really true?
I don't know. I think so. I'd have to look it up.
That's so weird.
Let me see if I can find it.
I don't like. I guess
maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong.
I don't. I'm looking at like alchemical. Oh wait, no,
it's not there. I'm just losing my mind. Don't worry about it.
Anyway, yeah, I would pick one or the other on that. And also, I'm not sure which ability that's modifying, whether that's supposed to be the disadvantage move or if that's supposed to be the cantrip reaction move. So
I think it's the number of spells they can prepare. Is intelligence modifier plus half artificer level.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway, I would just be clear on which ability. Like, if that's meant to modify the first one, put it before the additionally, and if it's where it is, I would put it in the same paragraph just for clarity, maybe. Just because it's a little. It's kind of like two different effects that seems like they could apply to that. So. But let's look at the Heart of the Cards here, the 15th level feature, which is...
Of course, it's called Heart of the Cards.
Yeah, great name, by the way, Jin. It's time to... Your efficiency in making your cards made you able to make an upgrade to them. All cards now affect a 5-foot cube instead of one target, and cloud cards now create a 20-foot sphere of smoke. All friendly creatures have advantage against all effects, since they know what will happen, but can still suffer effects and damage from the cards. Additionally, you are able to imbue 2 more cards and add 1 more die to them with Lucky Draw, now a max of 4 cards for the Heart. Heart, Sword, Skull, Bell category, maximum 2 per category, and a max of 2 die to the effects of each card. All right, there's a lot going on here. I think that some of this would be better served in other abilities, like putting it elsewhere.
I think certain things, right? Like all cards now affect all creatures in a 5-foot cube instead of a single target. I actually like that as like a cool way that your thing is expanding, becoming better.
Yeah, agreed.
The problem is because then you also have exceptions like a cloud card, and I really hope that was not intended to also work with the shield card because that's really busted.
Yeah, the shield card is can't exist, but
I think like yeah, exceptions are strange. Is I guess how I'd put it, right? Because
you would be better off if you want this to be the capstone effect, redesigning the cloud card so that it works in the same way as the other ones, so it makes the same sense for them to be extended to a 5-foot cube. Like a cloud of smoke appears around the head of someone doing something, like something like that. You could definitely find a lot of ways to make a cloud card work if you like that aesthetic. Yeah, this was the Shuffler. Overall, I think you're going in a good direction. One thing that is probably it's going to be hard to do the flavor on this, I would say, to make it work with the artificer. Like, I get why you pick the artificer because they make things and this makes cards, but I don't know if it resonates on just a more like it's close. I mean, it's an archetype. There's no way, like Jin Hall is saying, it's one of my favorite fighting with playing cards.
Well, you're painting the magic into the card. I don't know. I think that works.
Calligraphy, yeah, it works for you. It's on the fence for me, but I think it'll just be hard. It'll just that flavor checks will really have to be really sell me on the mechanical aspect of like making the cards. And why artificers choose to make the cards. I think that's just a big note when you go to put it in flavor text.
Yeah, so I think our overall notes here is a little less intricate. You have a couple of different ways that certain things work, where it'd be nice if they were just a little bit more consistent between each other. So cut down a little bit of the intricacies, especially like we didn't talk about it much, but this second feature in the Heart of the Cards is just making an already intricate feature a little bit more intricate. Yeah, the shield is I'd even just strike the shield entirely. At this point.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a very, very good start. I like this quite a bit, actually.
Agreed.
I'm not with Pete. I completely get the text or the flavor here, but that's just me.
No, like I get it. I get the. I mean, I know the twisted face of the gamut there. I'm just saying, like, I'd really work on that flavor text, on tying it into the Artificer brand in a major way.
It works for me. I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Jin, for sharing.
A flat 1 would be probably.
I think you're too close to the.
But yeah,
you're too close to the Alchemist. I definitely would just, maybe you can keep the healing if you really want them. But I would say making this a much more clearly offensive option, or maybe not even offensive, but like environmental affecting. Like the cloud can be a defensive option, right? Maybe I don't know. Or it is a defensive option, but it's just a little different.
On an unrelated note, Halo Dude 73 is subscribed. Yeah, this is big brain time. This is Jeremy. This is kind of our big brain show.
This is the biggest my brain has been in like a month.
You should get that checked out.
Or no, like a week. A couple days? I don't know.
Thank you so much for the subscription, Halo. Dude. And on the subject of Halo Dude, we have some items to look at from Halo Dude.
Yeah, and once again, thank you, Jin, for sharing the Artificer Shuffler. I would say I'm not super familiar with the Artificer, so I'm very I'm excited to see other people like really digging into it. I know it's coming out for realsies in the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
They have this is a planned subclass?
No, not the Shuffler, but the Artificer.
Oh, the Artificer. I thought you were saying that the Shuffler was coming out for realsies. I was like, wait, is this based on a future?
Like, round of applause.
Based on a future thing?
Turnaround ever.
So let's look at These items were submitted by Halo Dude in chat. There's some here that are just more general purpose magic items, and there's some goofier ones that are designed for D&D time. I see we have a pocket kobold and a pocket tuk-tuk here. For now, we'll probably just go over the more like general magic items, but I'll make sure I check out those D&D time ones too for D&D time later.
And if you guys are interested in these magic items and checking out the D&D time ideas from Halo Dude, you can find that on our Discord. Link at our website, dndtime.stream. Pete, you want to start with Kirosute?
Kirosute.
That's how that's pronounced. I apologize if I'm wrong.
It sounds right to me. It is a longsword, major magic item, rare, requires attunement. Major. It's rare that you see people put in the major, but I like that you did. You gain a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this weapon. It is a sharp katana with its blade oxidized to be blue in color. Its handle and sheath are black and cloth wrapped. Targets hit by the sword cannot be healed until your next turn, and it has a curse on it. While attuned to this weapon, you are unable to use another weapon or shield. When you critically hit with this weapon, you kill any creature of a CR that is half of your level or lower. If a creature is killed in this way, your weapon is sheathed after your turn ends, and you must spend your next main action unsheathing it. That's just all style. That's interesting. You gotta do like a cool flourishing sheath after you crit something to death. It's in some ways it's kind of a Vorpal. It's kind of a Vorpal katana.
Baby Vorpal katana. I like this. It's very cool. I would think, just as a note, this amount of like descriptive text is like perfect for a magic item. Just enough that like you can imagine what it looks like, and someone could probably draw it. And I mean, they have creative liberty to make it, put embellishments on it. But I think this is like the perfect amount of flavor text for a magic item.
Agreed. Some quibbles, I guess. Targets hit by the sword cannot heal until your next turn. Is that the proper phrasing for that?
Actually, the proper phrasing is hit points lost to this weapon's damage can be regained only through a short or long rest, rather than by regeneration, magic, or any other means.
There it is.
And that language is from the Sword of Wounding.
Did you pull that up to reference it, or did you just have that? Did you just have that off the dome?
No, I pulled that.
Okay, I was like, damn, Jeremy, that was an impressive pull on that language. But yeah, that's the technical correct phrasing of that. Not that I didn't understand exactly what it did by targets hit by the sword. Actually, this is, I think, different than that, because this is intended that until the end of the next turn, the target can't benefit from healing magic. So it's not meant to be the damage that the sword deals.
You can just say cannot regain hit points until your next turn. I think you can just say that too.
Yeah, regain hit points is maybe the way to go. Yeah, that's cool.
Also, I just want to say this is fairly similar in that regard to the Weapon of Wounding, but big exception, because you gave this item a curse to give it a little bit of its own identity. I think this is awesome. Like, even though it is fairly similar in what it does, prevents healing, I think that is okay, and I think that's like both a healthy design and, dude, I don't know about you all, but Pete, I don't know about you, but for me, if I were playing in a game and I got a Weapon of Wounding, I'd be like, all right, wow, Weapon of Wounding. But if I got the Kirosute,
I'd be of course.
Hype.
Proper names for weapons are always really satisfying. Jeremy, I've learned a lesson right now in this moment that I should just give every magic item a proper noun.
I mean, they're much cooler that way.
Yeah, I don't know why all of my items are just proper nouns that I give to players. Yeah, that's a cool one. Let's look at the overweighted bow next. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'd love to. The overweighted bow. This is a long bow, very rare major item, requires attunement. You get a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with the weapon. And the curse. This weapon deals an extra 1d6 piercing damage when it hits a target, but if you critically fail on an attack roll, you take the extra damage instead. Okay, I getcha.
because the heavy string, I imagine, snaps back is the idea.
Mm-hmm. I
The
actually like this. I normally hate the concept of critical fumbles. I really just do not like it. Which is why it's not one of the reasons it's not in 5e. But because it's on an item and you kind of opt into it with this item, I like that. I think that's very cool.
I'm inclined to agree. The 1d6 piercing. The only thing, again, I'm just picking nits because that's what we're here for. I feel like I want the 1d6 piercing damage to be in the main section and not in the curse, because that doesn't feel like a curse. And I think you can just say when you critically fail on an attack roll with this weapon, you'd suffer 1d6 piercing damage. Because you're already missing with the attack, so it's not like you're doing both,
Yeah, exactly. I
think that will track. But again, that's my nitpicking, and I think it functions as it stands.
Yeah, I think if I were doing this, I would make it a +1 weapon and just make it an uncommon item. Not like they were all over the place, but I'd want to give an item like this that does have a drawback to my players like earlier. I feel like fun cursed items that like punch a little above their pay grade, like a +1 longbow that does extra d6 of damage. That's like a really good uncommon magic item, and it's got this slight drawback. And I think like.
And it is a very slight drawback because most of the time it's just a 1d6 extra damage bow, which is really good.
5% of the time it's a drawback. But anyway, I would personally go in that direction just because, like, I don't know. I feel like earlier levels when you're less kitted out, you're going to be more inclined to want to take that gambit, right?
Agreed.
But that's maybe just my 2 cents there.
We have the reverse fishbowl next. That's a funny one. Just by name, but it's a wondrous item. It is a minor uncommon item, a fishbowl that is large enough to seal over a creature's head, allowing them to go underwater. While underwater, the fishbowl has 1 hour of air and removes movement penalties from being submerged, as well as letting the creature see normally underwater. When you remove the fishbowl above water, the air supply refreshes. That's actually, I think, pretty elegant in the way that it works. I like this more than most of the underwater breathing items that exist, because most of the underwater breathing items are just like, you attune to this and you can breathe underwater. I like that this has a much stricter time constraint on it. It's less good, but it's more fun to use. I don't know, I actually like this design a lot.
I do as well. I think movement penalties, maybe that's the wrong language. I don't know.
It also doesn't necessarily track as much to me. That you'd be better at swimming for the fishbowl. Like the letting creatures see normally underwater, I think is really cool. Like, I don't know. Is there a penalty for? I don't actually know if there's a penalty for underwater vision.
As you go lower, it gets darker. That's it.
It might be worth saying something rather the effects of you have advantage on checks related. Something like the Goliath is immune to adverse weather conditions related to cold. I feel like you could do that for, being underwater, environmental conditions related to the underwater, and get that phrasing and use something with that. But that's cool. I really like the 1 hour of air thing.
Yeah, and then there's also conflagration. And Halo, I know you guys are very excited about the D&D time item things. If there's one in particular you'd like us to look at, just let us know, and we'll take a look at the one.
Yeah, typically, your favorite.
We don't want to be looking at a ton of very goofy stuff nowadays. Yeah, there's just a lot to go over. But anyway, conflagration is a major uncommon battle axe, and you get a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with the weapon. The weapon deals an extra 1d4 fire damage when it hits the target, as embers flare out and flow off the weapon when it is swung, which may potentially set fire to the wielder's surrounding. Okay, interesting. I actually really like that concept. I think the language you'd want is like fireball. It'd be flammable objects that are not held and carried within 5 feet of the of the target, or something, right?
Yeah, and when you swing it, you might want to just say there is a 5% chance that.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I like that a lot. When you swing this weapon, right there, yeah, there's a 5%, or on a critical hit, right, that happens or something.
Yeah, or just give it a mechanic rather than using the potentially. It's always better to just codify things rather than leaving it up to DM when you can.
Yeah, especially in something like this where it's like whether the conflagration is a good or a bad thing can kind of depend on the situation, right? Like I could really see a player getting really, really upset where it's like, all right, Dungeon Master, you just arbitrarily decided it burned down the forest. Thanks. You know,
But
it's
but if they
if
roll a
there's
natural 1 to burn down the forest, or a natural
yeah,
20 to burn
right,
down the forest, both of those two things are more interesting
yeah,
because you knew the risk going in.
exactly. The potentially just has a lot of room for that to be trouble. But anyway, Halo wanted us to look at the Scythe of Gomez. Would you like me to check this out?
Yeah, sure.
This is a glaive. It's a legendary. Oh my goodness, legendary weapon. You get a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with the weapon. This is an evil dark scythe that permeates its darkness around the user. When not in sunlight, this darkness defends you, giving targets disadvantage on attack rolls made against you. This effect is disabled while in sunlight. You gain dark vision up to 30 feet. As an action, you can swing the scythe in a full circle, making a single melee attack roll against every enemy creature around you. A creature that is hit takes 1d6 extra necrotic damage, and once you scythe in this manner, you cannot do so again until the next dusk. All right. What would I change?
I think
Maybe within reach instead of around you.
I think a way to do that last effect would rather be like, as a special action while wielding the scythe, you can just force each creature within range to make a
save.
saving throw.
You could. I
you like the flavor of just. I mean, yeah, there's definitely an extra flavor to making a bunch of attacks. And then once you do it in this manner, you cannot do so again until the next dusk. At this point, I mean, if it's a legendary item, I would even just say you can just make an attack against each enemy creature around you without the. Oh, I'm sorry, 1d6 extra necrotic damage. I thought it was just 1d6 necrotic damage when I read it the first time. So it is just okay. Never mind. I like it like that. I thought you were just having it do 1d6 to everything. That's my own misread.
Yeah, I like this. I like that you didn't go too crazy on, like most people when they make a legendary weapon, it's like way over the top.
I do it. I do it all the time.
This is very good. I like this quite a bit. It's very, very restrained design.
Agreed.
All right.
Yeah, cool. Let's look at that 10 Towns Ranger before we start talking about 10 Towns.
Yeah, we've got another.
And thank you very much for sharing, Apex.
Yeah, and if you guys want to check that stuff out, you can do that on our website or on our Discord. Man, that's the kind of day it is for me today, folks. Pete, let me kick us off with the 10 Towns Ranger.
Yeah, give us that flavor text.
So obviously this has to deal with excuse me. This has to deal with the 10 towns of Icewind Dale, which is going to tie into our next discussion topic, which is Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden. The Rangers of 10 Towns have adapted to the isolation of the cold Arctic wastes of Icewind Dale. They've learned that often the deadliest foe is in an endless sea of white is one's own mind. The 10 Town Rangers have learned to play tricks with light and fool the mind's eye to gain advantage in a fight. Fighting a 10 Towns Ranger feels akin to striking out at the wind and the snow itself. All right.
Cool little line there.
Yeah. I like that last line. I think it's weird. Right off the bat, I can tell you're going. I'm looking like Illusory Blizzard, Master Misdirection, going in a very kind of almost underhanded fighter kind of direction with this, and maybe that works. I'm not sure. Let's find out.
I'm gonna take the Ranger magic here. Starting at 3rd level, you learn an additional spell when you reach certain levels in this class, as shown in the 10 Towns Ranger spells table. The spell counts as a Ranger spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of other Ranger spells you know. So that's all standard, and the extra spells you get are Silent Image, Blur, Hypnotic Pattern, Hallucinatory Terrain, and Mislead.
Right.
These are all very illusory effects. All those track with what you kind of said it was going to be. So, do you want to take Arctic Adept, Jeremy?
Of course, at third level, you've rigorously trained in an Arctic terrain and have gained the following skills honed to combat its dangers. And they are: if you move at least 20 feet in a straight line, you may choose to slide an additional 10 feet in the same direction. This is in addition to your maximum move speed. Okay. You can't be surprised by creatures burrowing or hiding amongst naturally occurring terrain, and you ignore difficult terrain related to slippery surfaces. Okay. And then, do you want to just go through and then we'll talk about them, Pete?
Yeah.
All right. Also at third level, you get Perceptive Duelist. At third level, you master the art of capitalizing on your enemy's disorientation. When a creature makes an attack with disadvantage and misses, you may use your reaction to mark the creature until the end of your next turn. Next time you hit a marked creature with a weapon attack, the target takes an additional 1d8 damage of the weapon's damage type.
That's very interesting.
Interesting indeed. Mark is actually a key word in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Just so you know, it is an optional rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide and has its own set of implications.
So those implications aren't misused here, are they?
Goodness.
Like that doesn't.
No. Goodness. Pete, you start with one with the snow, and I will read this.
Get those mark rules.
I haven't looked at mark in ages.
One with the snow. At 7th level, you've completely acclimated your body to the harsh cold of the north. As a result, you gain resistance to cold damage. That's an easy one. And I'll do Master of Misdirection while we're at it. 11th level, you're able to hide your presence completely when attacking. Once per turn, when you make the attack action, you're able to become invisible the moment before you strike. The first time you miss an attack while invisible on your turn, you can make another weapon attack as part of the same action. Once per turn, when you make the attack action, first time you miss an attack while invisible on your turn. Okay.
That is a complicated statement there.
Yeah, there's definitely some nuance to that. Do you have mark?
Yeah, what marks do is if a creature is marked, then any opportunity attack against the marked creature is made with advantage. And that opportunity attack, it doesn't expend the reaction. And yeah, but that's it.
Okay.
In 4th edition, marks were like a huge mechanic, and like everything had a mark that did different things. So it was very strange seeing them in 5e. Speaking of very strange, it's a very interesting 11th level feature we'll talk about shortly. And at 15th level, you get Illusory Blizzard. At 15th level, as an action, you create an illusion of a blizzard in a 20-foot radius, a 20-foot tall cylinder with a 40-foot radius centered on yourself. The area becomes heavily obscured, and the illusion moves with the ranger. Any creatures hostile towards you within the illusion become outlined in glowing red aura and are easily visible to anyone inside or outside the illusion. It can last for 1 minute or until the ranger chooses to end it. You can use ability once per long rest.
You get Call of Duty, like infrared sight. I like that. Let's start going through and tackling this guy. So there's a very clear. You've definitely created like your aesthetic. You found the niche. This is a North cold illusion ranger. It's, for my taste, maybe a little bit more magic-y than I usually perceive of rangers. But that's, I think, a question of personal preference rather than being something that would actually, like, want to discuss. So, we'll just talk about it as, like, it's a very arcane ranger in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. I really love the spell choices. I think they're very good for the concept that you were sticking out to get. And this is my Frosty part. I'm not sure we said that at the beginning. Thank you, Frosty.
Oh yes, thank you very much, Frosty, for sharing.
Love the spell choices. Great picks. No questions there. One of the things I really liked here is that you third level Perceptive Duelist, when a creature makes an attack with disadvantage and misses. So
that was really cool.
Against you. But I really like that as being a core mechanic to this deception and Disillusion Ranger. I think it's a very, very cool choice. And I think it's cool with the mark too. I don't have any problem with you using the mark mechanic. I don't know if you meant to use it, but I don't think it makes too much of a difference here.
Perceptive Duelist is a really cool feature. It's my favorite thing on here. That just that mechanic of when they make an attack with disadvantage and miss is really a really creative mechanic.
Yeah, very, very good. And it works well with Blur, specifically, a spell that you're going to get as this ranger. It'd be nice if there were something you could get at earlier levels to really focus on that kind of defensive aspect of the class. Like, if there were maybe some facet of the Arctic Adept that could give a creature disadvantage, maybe. And
maybe there's a spell other than Silent Image, because again, Silent Image is very you make a big illusion and it's kind of what you want. There might be some kind of just like blinding light thing that you could grab that might work for that as well. Is there anything that blinds at first level, Jeremy?
Color spray, Pete. The Aurora.
Actually, honestly,
yeah,
that's
what I thought of with Hypnotic Pattern is the Aurora.
Hypnotic Pattern tracked with me. Color Spray actually also kind of tracks for that.
A good jab to the eye. Yeah, right. That would also do it, 12-sided guy.
Yeah, poke in the eye. But anyway, I like that one with the snow. Non-controversial, resistant to cold damage.
I really liked that. That is a very tasteful and succinct 7th level feature. A lot of subclasses, people are afraid of having a too boring of a feature. That's perfectly fine.
Tasteful is the right word for it.
Yeah. Master of Misdirection is very complicated. It's very hard to understand.
I think the thing that's going to make this work better is when you make the attack action, you can become invisible until the end of your next turn.
I think that the point you were trying to get here, and it's funky because do you mean like the invisibility spell, like you take the attack and now you're visible again, or is this invisibility like just the condition invisible?
That's what it seems like.
Condition, which would just mean you can't be seen.
It needs a duration. It needs to know how long you're invisible. And that's kind of powerful in of itself. I don't know if you need the extra, when you miss an attack while invisible, you can make another weapon attack. Just becoming invisible before you attack is advantage on all your attacks, which is really good. And then I feel like I feel like this feature is meant to synergize a bit with Perceptive Duelist and give a more reliable way to do Perceptive Duelist. But as it stands, I just don't know how long the invisibility lasts. So are you like still invisible at the end of your turn, so then you can benefit from it when they make their disadvantage attacks against you? And also, I think regardless of this, if you're gonna do this like attack and then you just become invisible for the round, that probably needs a number of uses on it. Because
absolutely,
just doing that all the time is wild, is really, really powerful.
Yep. Illusory Blizzard is where you kind of lost me. Like all the other ones, I understood the direction you were going for, and I liked them quite a bit. Illusory Blizzard felt just a little too.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Off. I mean, there's something strange about it. Like it's heavily obscured, and like mechanically, there are problems with it. You know, you're using a condition heavily obscured, and then you're saying easily visible to anyone inside or outside the illusion. It's stuff that like.
Interacting with hostility is usually something you probably want to avoid too.
Yeah, unless it's a social aspect, you probably don't want to use hostile as the keyword. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's weird.
We didn't talk about the slide at 3rd level. I like the slide.
That's something we talked about a little bit in the chat, in the workshop. Which, if you want to talk about stuff in the workshop and contribute to creating these kind of concepts, you should do that on our Discord. I'm going to just say that every time now. But yeah, the slide I like, actually. I like that quite a bit. You might want to say this extra distance is not limited by your movement, instead of this is in addition to your maximum.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm with Jeremy. The Illusory Blizzard is maybe just a little bit too. That was the one that really pushed me over the too magic-y line. Like the rest of them,
Yeah.
like even Silent Image is a little bit too. But like Blur and Mislead and even hallucinatory terrain, I can kind of see like that working because you know that the idea is that you know the terrain well. Because even though maybe the reach of that is a little broader than it's meant to be in this.
Yeah, like chat saying the area becomes obscured, but the creatures you're fighting are outlined in it. Yeah, no, I get like how the effect works, Halo dude. For me, this doesn't follow with the rest of the design we've gone for here, right? We've gone for a very kind of deceitful, I turn invisible kind of thing, and then it's like you're the predator, right, in a blizzard now. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what you're kind of going for, but it just doesn't super click with me.
Yeah, I'm on the exact same wavelength. I think but other than Master of Misdirection, I think needs some uses and a little clarity. Illusory Blizzard, I'm not super into. The rest of this, I think, is in a really great place. I like all the spells except for maybe Silent Image, and I like all the other features. Arctic Adept is great. Perceptive Duelist I really love Perceptive Duelist in particular.
Yeah, very what do we call it? Inspired feature.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the 10 Towns Ranger, which is a great.
One thing I'd actually recommend about. One last thing I'd recommend about the Arctic Adept. I know you have a couple of this specifically difficult terrain related to slippery surfaces. What I'd recommend is you open up Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, and check out the Wilderness Hazard section to maybe get some inspiration on the kind of stuff that you want to
maybe we'll talk about that in a minute, Jeremy.
Yeah, maybe we will.
Yo Mama's a Bugbear says, it's clumsily worded. It's a cool capstone, but it does go against the flavor of the class. Would be a cool spell, though. I agree with the last statement that it would be a cool spell. Definitely, I could see this being a good spell. But that's all that I've got. Do you want to take a break and then come back and really dive into Rime of the Frostmaiden?
Absolutely, folks. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes. I don't know what our time break is.
We'll talk to you soon.
We're live. Hello, we're live.
Hi.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back.
Hi.
It's time. It's time for the thing and the place and the stuff we're going to talk about.
Jeremy, it's time for the run of the Frostmaiden. It's
Nice.
Rime, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden is what we're going to be talking about right now. This discussion, for anyone unaware, this is the newest adventure that just came out from Wizards for Dungeons and Dragons, of course. And I have the book right here. Jeremy's got the cover art up on the screen. As you can see, it is gorgeous. All of the art in this book is gorgeous.
And for Owl Minotaur, a little bit.
For anyone that is interested in Rime of the Frostmaiden, be it playing in it or running it, our review of it is going to be spoiler light. We're not going to say there's going to be zero spoilers, but everything that we're going to be talking about that's kind of spoiler specific is probably going to be in like the first chapter, and it's going to be stuff that you kind of are supposed to know going into the adventure anyway, for the most part.
Or you would learn in your very first session play.
Likewise. And we're not going to spoil anything beyond that, but those will be some of the stuff, some of the things that we're talking about. The Owltar on the cover there is actually Oril, who I think will be one of the first things we talk about. Let's hop in, Jeremy. Where do you want to start with this? Do you want to just give a rundown of like
Oril? I want to start right there. So, unlike most adventures, right? Like, let's look at I don't know, The Rise of Tiamat, right? That book, that series of adventures. There's a really obvious villain, Tiamat. And there's the obvious, like, what's going to happen in that adventure? Well, Tiamat's going to rise to power, and then, you're going to have to fight Tiamat. You know what's going to happen from the start, but it's like a big looming threat, right? There's an imminency of danger, of this big monster is going to appear and destroy the world. And that's not the tone we have in this adventure. So this is Oril. She's the Frostmaiden. She's the mistress of winter. She embodies all the cruel, cold, evil malevolence of winter. And she does not care about anyone. And she's a goddess in the Forgotten Realm setting, and or a lesser demigod, whatever you want to call her, lesser goddess. I don't know.
Kind of a fallen goddess is the thing, right?
Yeah, and she's the big bad, right? She is the force that has put this land, Icewind Dale, this region, and plunged it into this eternal winter that is currently suffering from. The people there are suffering from, and that's known. All of the people who live in Icewind Dale know that. Oril is just, Oril is not like marching into the towns and killing people. Oril is just keeping everything frozen in winter, and that in this eternal night as well. And because of that, right, that's what makes this threat. It's the environment. It is the cold. It is the wind. It is the darkness, the blizzards, the snow, the brutality of winter. That is going to be your biggest adversary in this book. It's not a single monster that you can just go, beat up, or that's really looming over you.
Oril is in many ways throughout the book the symbol of that, but this book does a really good job of setting this tone of just cold isolation in the frozen north. And that was what they were going for in this book, because they talked about how they'd done stuff in Icewind Dale before, they'd done adventures themed in winter before, and this time their goal was to really give that feeling of being alone in the cold, and to bring out that aspect of Lovecraftian horror in a lot of ways here in the end. It's a really cool book, and I think they definitely accomplished that as well. We haven't talked about this yet, Jeremy, but I know both you and I were talking about before, and we both love this book. It's really well put together.
Phenomenal. This
is almost, I don't want to say objectively, but I am going to say objectively, the best book adventure that I've seen yet. It's phenomenal. And some of the elements, we'll go through and talk about the various elements, but one thing that's really cool about this book is that they have given a lot more tools to dungeon masters that maybe aren't as familiar with dungeon mastering and don't know kind of some of the tricks that we've all accumulated together over time. It writes them out and really tells you how to DM this adventure beyond just telling you what's in it. It doesn't just give you stat blocks; it tells you what to do with those stat blocks, and it really does a great job of weaving the story of this adventure together.
Yeah, more than I've ever seen in any other module. This adventure follows both a story that like makes sense, right? Like when I looked back at Waterdeep Dragon Heist, an adventure I ran this adventure on the stream, and Waterdeep Dragon Heist, as fun as it was disjointed as all hell. There were a bunch of kind of wild assumptions that the player characters would do X, Y, or Z, and absolutely no way to course correct built into the adventure. And that is kind of the opposite of what's going on here. In this adventure, they've done a really good job of taking each of the 10 towns of Icewind Dale, which are the core locations in the big Icewind Dale sandbox, the very sandbox style adventure, and giving all of the towns hooks and reasons why you might want to explore, might want to go visit some other place. It's done in a way that I think will feel very, very organic for players trying to explore, and very easy for the dungeon master to plant those seeds of, and now maybe you want to go to Bremen, this other town, because this NPC that you've been spending time with, oh, well, their son lives in Bremen, and they haven't heard from them in a few days, right? Like, there's some really cool tie-ins, like something like that, that are really cool or very neat, and useful inclusions.
Absolutely. And before we get too far ahead, just praising this book because it is worthy of such. Let's just go through and start talking about some of the actual elements that are here in the book. And I think a great place to start, Jeremy, would be the there's a lead in an introduction. It explains that Auril has trapped the North in this eternal night and winter. But then it goes on to describe the environments and gives a lot of new rules for environmental conditions here and weather hazards in Icewind Dale. And those are like a really, I think, going to be a major component of this book. I haven't had the chance personally to read through all of the book because it is maybe also the largest book that Wizards put out, but
very thick.
But these environmental condition rules and these weather options, and I'm trying to pull them up here so I can look at them while I'm talking about them. They're very cool.
Make a huge impact, and they're, like I was saying before, right? The main threat in this book, in terms of like overarching theme, is going to be the environment, right? How the cold, the lack of food and water, the lack of shelter, how all of that is going to kind of dig into the players, right? Dig into the characters and make it difficult and then challenging for them to survive. And that's like one of the three. There are three big kind of adversaries, I guess you could say, this adventure. So there's Auril and the environment. There's another one that's kind of an intermediary one in the middle. We're not going to talk much about it because it's kind of a spoiler.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil anything.
To, like, make the characters. It's a good kind of rite of passage where the characters are now important and like feel like they can do something about what's going on. And then there's kind of the end of the adventure, which we're again not going to discuss.
Yeah, we don't want to give anything away there.
That'd be a huge spoiler. But yeah, the weather conditions are awesome.
They've added. I don't think we'll go through and discuss the mechanics of all of them. They're good mechanics. I have read through all of these mechanics, and I like them quite a bit. But just to tell you the things that are covered here that you get to go over, they have rules for avalanches, rules for blizzards, rules for extreme cold, which extreme cold rules already existed, but they just put them in the book because you'll certainly use them in this setting. There's a really cool rule set for fishing. There's like a fish in this setting that's important to it. It tells you, how to fish for it, and also talks about like ice fishing and stuff like that. That's really fun. There's a frigid water rule, which is repeated here from the Dungeon Master's Guide. There's just a general discussion of the lighting of Icewind Dale, because the everlasting Rime, which is what is referred to, the winter time is referred to here, is hence the name Rime of the Frostmaiden. Basically, you only have a few hours a day, and those are of dim light. So it's intense. And then details on how to get around the world. Dog sleds, how to walk with snowshoes, how to walk without snowshoes, over mountains, things like that. they're good rules, and I think they are just the right amount of restrictive, where they're not.
Yeah.
It's not cripplingly difficult, but they're dangerous. Like an avalanche poses a very immediate threat, but it doesn't eliminate your character if you get caught up in an avalanche.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things I really love about this adventure is they've built rules for the avalanche, for blizzards, and they're mainly based around how do these environmental conditions affect your character's travel, right? How do they affect your character's level of exhaustion, which is like a real you need shelter in this module. Like that's going to be a big focus is going to the 10 towns for shelter so you can rest off your exhaustion that your character has. But even things that are more direct, like avalanches, right? It'll tell you, all right, avalanches start approximately this distance away from the characters. There's a die roll to see how far away they are. They travel at this kind of a speed. And the characters can try and evade them. They can try to get over them, perhaps. They could try and just tough it out and get their way out. And it's very good. It's not too brutal that it's like, oh well, I failed my check, I'm dead, like in real life. Um, if you get caught in an avalanche, but it's brutal enough that it's scary, right? It's really a threat, especially
I think
if something like that were to happen during like a random encounter.
I think it's the perfect. Honestly, the avalanche was a personal favorite of mine. I think it's the perfect amount where just like it damages you a little, and it creates a situation where if you don't deal with it, you die. But the damage is really slight, so once you get out of it, it's like the avalanche never happened. So it's like a moment of intense pressure, and then it's gone. Anyway, I like the avalanche one, but all of them are really well put together.
Yeah, even the fishing for knucklehead trout, right? That's this picture on we have right here. They've cut a hole in the ice. They're fishing for a trout, and there are potential repercussions. Like things can go wrong when you're fishing for these trout they're huge. I mean, they're about the size of a person. There was some really great concept art that I unfortunately don't have to throw up right now, but they're huge. They're really huge trout, and your character might get something bad could happen to them while they're trying to fish for these trout, and everything's got a repercussion. Nothing is just free in Icewind Dale. And I like that, right? It's these little intense moments that could happen that I think are going to be a lot of fun.
It includes the Goliath race. If anyone's interested in the Goliath, it's if you don't have the Goliath somewhere written down, then that's just a nice little boon you get from this.
Yeah, and the Goliaths actually are endemic to the region. You'll run into Goliath NPCs and tribes and things as you play through this adventure. And so, if you've ever wanted to play a Goliath character, this is a really great spot to do so. Very good opportunity.
Can I talk a little bit about the backgrounds, Jeremy?
Oh yeah, so that's something I really love about this. Please take it, Pete.
Yeah, so for all of the basic backgrounds in the player's handbook, they gave a little hook that you can use if your players are playing with those backgrounds, and to just give them a little bit of a tie to the region, which does exactly that. It ties the character into 10 towns and the Icewind Dale and the surrounding region, and gives some reason why they were here at the start of the adventure. Just to provide an example, because I don't think these would really be spoilery. It's just, these are just ideas like there are in many of the backgrounds. What's a good one, Jeremy? Do you have a personal favorite?
So one thing I
like the sailor one.
The sailor is very good. The thing I love about this is, like Pete was saying earlier, this is the kind of stuff that, as a skilled dungeon master, you might already be doing this. Right, you might be taking your players aside in session 0 and being like, "Hey, so let's try and think of some cool ways that your characters might be tied to this setting in a way that is meaningful, that they care about, right? A reason that they would want to protect it rather than just bail." And yeah, like Pete, you were saying, I really like the sailor. Which Pete, you want to read it?
Yeah, I'll read that here. Sailor, you've sailed ships up and down the Sword Coast, but a shipwreck made you reevaluate your life choices. 2 years ago, you headed north, bought a house and a fishing boat in 10 towns, and became a fisher. You were told that the summers here are beautiful, but you have yet to see one.
Perfect.
It's a crisp, just you are a fisherman living in 10 towns. And, you have a past. It kind of gives you you have a past that, you've seen some adventure, you've been around and done things. There's a reason why you're maybe a little bit of a cut above. But for now, you're just trying to find a peaceful life, and the region's denying you one. There's so much context and flavor in that motivation for why you'd be interested in helping out the region. There's so much here.
And even beyond that, right? You have a house. You have a house in one of the 10 towns. Super, just the fact that that is now a thing, that's awesome, right? This immediately also begs to the question, do you have ties to any of the people in the 10 towns?
Odds
just
are,
by
yeah.
saying that you live in a town and just blindly picking one of the towns even gives you so much as a dungeon master, as a dungeon master, as you're playing through, right, for NPCs to recognize this character, and for that character to maybe have ties to things going on in that town.
I don't want to
love that.
I don't want to harp on this too much, but another great thing that they do for DMs in this is there's a passage where it mentions that if your characters choose to kind of use these backgrounds and are from 10 towns, here's a list of the information that they would just automatically know. They would know the names of the speaker for each of the 10 towns, which is kind of the leader of each of the 10 towns. They would know the names of all the 10 towns and roughly where they are relative to each other. There's certain things that they tell you, basically they're saying, hey, if you're a GM, it's cool to just let your players know this stuff. You don't have to make them discover it. They can just already know where all the towns are. Great little just guidance. Great little guidance all over the place for newer GMs.
And because the biggest drawback in this adventure is the travel, right? Not the drawback, rather, but the greatest adversary. It's okay that you know where things are, because just still getting there is going to be a struggle in its own right.
A challenge for sure.
Another one of the background hooks I really liked, and it's so simple, so mundane. It's just criminal. You're wanted for crimes in the cities of Luskan and Mirabar. They're just south of Icewind Dale. And no one will think to look for you in the 10 towns, the cold heart of Icewind Dale. Thankfully, no one in 10 towns cares who you are or what you've done. And I love that because it's emphasizing something that's very core to this book, which is Icewind Dale, the 10 towns are survivalist communities, right? No one cares who you are. No one cares what you've done. As long as you're contributing to keeping the town alive, keeping everyone safe and fed and warm, and helping it thrive, you're fine. Doesn't matter if you're a serial killer from Waterdeep. Who cares? You're not killing people.
Great art choice there, Jeremy. I love that one.
Yeah, I really like this picture. This is what happens if you get one of the things actually, and going back to the weather conditions, we missed it earlier, but you can actually, in a blizzard, there's a chance that your character can become lost and separated from the rest of the party. And then it takes, certain, roles to try and find each other and more time to re-find each other. And, as long as you're exploring out in the wilderness, there's a chance you're going to get random encounters. And this is one poor adventurer who got lost and has a random encounter coming right up here. Look at his face. I'm sure this Yeti's just being like, hey, bud, looks like you're having some trouble there. Need a hand?
He just looks very he looks very like this fucking idiot. It's really the look on his face. What is this guy doing?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk about the secrets, Jeremy?
Yeah. So, and I just talked about serial killer from Waterdeep. Secrets are a huge part of this adventure. They're something that I think every player everyone who's ever played Dungeons and Dragons has come up with a really cool secret for their character that they wanted to keep special and secret, and they want it to be very cool, and they're very excited about it. Sometimes they don't even want to share it with the dungeon master. Always share it with the dungeon master, just as a note for you players out there. But secrets are built into this adventure. There are a group, I think there are 12, there are more than 12. There's a whole bunch of secrets that you can roll on a table for, or draw from a deck of cards that you photocopy out of a page in the back of the book. And these secrets are meant to give your character both some of them are very whimsical, some of them are very dark, some of them are pretty neutral, and they're just meant to give you a little bit more depth Some of them have like events that are tied to them that throughout the adventure, right? They talk about this would be a great opportunity for. I guess I'll start with one, and then you can take the dark cool one. But one of the examples I'm going to give that's pretty not too spoily is called the Algandar Scion. Right. At
Yes.
some point, Lord Dagalt Neverember, he's a lord, a criminal lord actually in the south.
Or these are the that's like the extra info on them. The actual secrets in the appendix.
Yeah, sorry, I had the wrong thing. So Algandar Scion. So it's like you're a human, half elf. You have some part of human, and it is you're a scion of the Algandar bloodline, and the only known heir to the crown of Neverwinter, which is one of the big cities. If Dagalt Neverember, the city's Lord Regent, learns that I'm alive, he'll send assassins to kill me. Very, very cool concept. Super fun. Like the idea that maybe assassins will show up to find you, and maybe they will if you decide that's like a direction you want to go with that character, and you want to, that's like just a fun little bit of tidbit. Does your character keep that a secret, or do they flaunt that, right, as like, I am the scion of this lord, and I'm an heir to Neverwinter. You people should give me free stay in your inn, right? Like, how does your character use that secret? And I think that's just very fun to think about, and it's something that I think a lot of players are going to love, absolutely love.
Another cool one, and that I think is kind of spoiler light. We don't want to do too many of these, even though they're really cool, because we want you guys to find out what the secrets are. But this is another good one, which is you're a slod host. A red slod implanted a pellet-sized egg in me shortly before I started my adventuring career. If I can't get rid of it in the next 2 months, the egg will gestate inside me, and a slad tadpole will burst from my chest, killing me. It will then quickly grow into an adult slod and kill even more people.
And here's a beautiful picture of that happening.
I really like the idea of somebody having that secret and then just being like, I'm just going to play my character for 2 months and then roll a new character. I'm not going to do.
Now you're on a personal clock, because one of the shticks kind of about this adventure is because of what's going on, you can't leave Icewind Dale. And there's reasons for that. Don't worry about it.
Halo Dude asked, why is there alien in this? I'm sorry, Jerry, finish your thought.
Well, and this is the thing. Your character really has a strong motivation to get this figured out so that they can leave Icewind Dale and get this figured out before before a slod tadpole bursts from their chest.
Yeah, Halo Dude, but why is there alien in this? In the afterword by Chris Perkins, he actually mentioned that Alien was one of the big inspirations for this entire book. Just that, like, Lovecraftian horror. Yeah, this is a horror adventure. And I think isolation is one of the major themes of Alien as well. So,
absolutely. And one of the things when we're talking about secrets, we're not going to go into any more because we don't want to spoil these. One of the things that they say in the book, and I want to read this verbatim because I think this is very important. They give the dungeon master guidance of what these secrets are meant to evoke in a party, and that is where is it? The secrets are designed to foment mistrust among party members, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia that is appropriate for the setting. And some of these secrets are dark. We picked the slot host because it was I feel like you don't keep this secret. I feel like you tell people and you're like, I need help, guys. But there are some seriously dark secrets in these, and there are some seriously fun ones too. So I think it's going to be a very fun way to run this.
Agreed. Every single one of these inspired me as a DM to have like ideas about how I wanted to run these specifically for my players. Like, they're all great. Daily just subscribed 24 months. That seems like too many months. Is this right?
A lot of months.
2 years, Daily. Oh my goodness! Thank you so much. That's a long time.
That is a long freaking time. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your support and for being a cool person hanging out.
For sure.
Pete, look at this terrible frozen harbor. This poor boat. It's all froze.
The harbor could use some love, no doubt.
Pete, this is one of the reasons you could be trapped in 10 towns. Everything's frozen.
Yeah, I mean. So those are the secrets. What else do we want to talk about in this? Do you want to talk a little bit about the 10 towns, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of trying to tie into here.
Oh, I didn't recognize that you were doing that over my head.
Yeah, so there are 10 towns here that make up Icewind Dale. Some of them are on the side, are on lake. Oh, actually, I think they're all on lakes except for Bryn Shander, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And yeah, they're mostly survive off of like fishing. Although one of them is near a forest. Not that they can really go in now. But that's for the adventure. And yeah, all of these towns, it's very cool. They've gone through and for each of the towns throughout this adventure, they talk a little bit about the different people that live there. All of the towns have a town speaker, which is kind of an elected representative for the town that kind of speaks on the town's behalf at the kind of larger regional meetings. All of the towns are also fairly small. I think the largest is this town Bryn Shander, which is 3,000 maybe. Very, very small, all things considered. And the thing that I really love about this is they've given, for a dungeon master who would want to run this adventure, they've given the exact perfect amount of information for each town to really make it work to me. You know, you want to talk a little bit about the snowflakes system, Pete?
Yeah, all of the towns have a cute little sort of just a quick flashcard that has all the relevant details about the town on it, which are first off, there's a 3 snowflake system. There's like your Yelp reviews for the town, which they have 3 categories, which are their friendliness, their services, and their comfort. Friendliness is how nice are the people in the town on a scale of 1 to 3 snowflakes. Services, can you get the things that you need in the town, 1 to 3? And then comfort, are there taverns and inns and things like that? Is it going to be easy to like live in that town with like 1 comfort star, for example, or 3 comfort stars would be like there's several inns and you know they're warm enough to sleep in, and you'll be able to rest easily in the town. And 1 comfort is like maybe there's a townsfolk that would let you stay in the attic of their barn for a night, like.
And that's a literal example that they give.
Yeah, I didn't make that up. That's what they say in the book.
So I really love that they give you that really straightforward example of this is what these different places are kind of like. They talk a little bit about if you're a player and you're like, well, there's 3,000 people here. I'd like to go and find a cleric. And it talks a little bit about that, right? How are the likeliness of being able to find a magically adept person in a town? And then beyond that, right, talks a little bit about, you know, based on the friendliness of the town, which can change depending on if you're able to help the town and whatnot. Right, how likely they'd be able to help you and what they would charge if they did, which it's a lot of money. It's a lot of gold. But yeah, reputation is a huge deal in 10 towns. And all of the 10 towns, they have their own set of NPCs. They're not all as fleshed out as like the town of Saltmarsh in the Ghost of Saltmarsh book, but they'll each have the big thing that makes the town special. They'll each have, you know, at least 1 or 2 or 3 core locations with NPCs associated with them that are like, these are your kind of points of interest that aren't just Joe Schmo's house. And they'll each have a quest, a fun adventure hook that your characters can organically discover when they travel to that place. And and explore. And if you complete this quest, improve your reputation with the town. It's a very fun, straightforward little way. Like, gaining rep with the towns is almost like a mini game in this adventure, but it's not without drawbacks.
It's also not without boons. For one thing, gaining reputation in the town. I mean, you'll get, like, if you've helped a particular town, you may get a hero's welcome when you go to that town. But there's little side quests in all of these towns, and if you go to one of the towns that you didn't help, you may be treated like very coldly and like, oh wow, you solved their problems, but you didn't come help us. The people may actively dislike you when you arrive. And these are mechanics these are the kind of things that usually you expect like good dungeon masters to like think of and to run in their games. But this is again one of the first books where it kind of gives you that guidance and says, yeah, maybe run the towns like this if if you think that works for your game. And it's a great suggestion too. The book is again just full of these kind of things. And the other thing, and this is my favorite thing about this whole book, which is that all of the towns are really beautifully interwoven with each other. Every single, like for example, when they describe an NPC in, I'll talk about Bremen because it's the first one that they talk about here. When they described the tavern keep of the Buried Treasures Tavern in this town, which is the place that they're most likely to go to. They talk about this woman Cora, and they talk about kind of her son that she can't find. I think Jeremy alluded to this earlier, and he is a major player. Like she kind of explains how her son's been acting strange, and he is a player in one of the quests that they'll meet further down the line, and has the ability to like tie back into this tavern keeper they met there. It's just, they did a really good job of making the Icewind Dale and the Ten Towns region feel alive and real. Yeah.
Well, and along that kind of reality kind of check, they also went through the effort to kind of explain what life is like in these towns. Earlier we were showing a picture of the kids having cut a hole in the lake, going ice fishing, and that's how these towns live, right? They live primarily off of these fish. It tells you, which of all of the lakes have names, right? There's Mare Dolodon, there's the Red Waters. All the lakes have their own cool names, and it tells like, all right, this lake freezes almost completely. This one has thermal vents in the bottom, so it doesn't freeze. And they're little things that like, why did I care about that? And the answer might be, well, when you go to that lake that freezes over almost completely, and it's got really unhappy people with no services, and it's all about how people are starving, well, that maybe is like, that's why, right? You kind of have that context, you understand a little bit more what's going on. And it has a little bit of everything, right? It talks about what fuel sources different towns have. Some of them relying on whale oil from whalers by the coast. Some of them actually being able to cut wood from the forests. But it's nice having that little bit of context for like, this is how the people live. It's like half a page, but it gives so much. Like when the players are exploring and looking around, it's like, well, they buy whale oil from the merchants of the coast, right? There's now a thing that like you can have merchants selling whale oil in the town.
There's one town where they specify many of the people in this town are suffering from inbreeding, which is one of the darker ones. Like they really do a good job of different. Like I think it's right next to the town. This is the major tourist destination of. Like they do a really good job of giving all the towns a personality.
Absolutely, and they do it without going too overboard, I feel. Now they also have their own dark sides. Pete mentioned the inbreeding. One of the things that is core to this book, and it's a reason that we're okay with saying this here, not really a spoiler, Auril the Frostmaiden is the reason for the everlasting Rime, the cold, perpetual winter darkness that has taken over the lands of Icewind Dale. God, I almost said the lands of D&D time. Yeah, there's no secret of it. All of the people in the towns know it. Some of them have more reason to know it than others, but everyone knows it. And one of the things that is dark and cool about this module is all of the towns have their own ways of paying tribute to Auril in hopes of not of reducing the suffering, alleviating the suffering on their people. It might be the entire day's worth of knucklehead trout, all of the food that they had harvested, It might be going without warmth in the town, and there being severe punishments for people who, warm themselves with whale oil or something. These are cool things that make the towns unique and add this air of darkness, and almost like there's a paranoia in the people of Icewind Dale, and it tells you how to do it, how to, implement that in your game in a way that the players might be like, oh, geez, this place is a little too. We don't want to help them. Never mind, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, I believe that you may be right. I'm not familiar with that particular Lovecraft work. I haven't read all of them, but this was also Lovecraft was mentioned as a heavy inspiration. I think the Mountains of Madness or something like that was one of the big ones for this. But I'm sure that was also an influence because there's a lot of Lovecraft references in this.
Yeah. And of course, there's some really cool stuff in this adventure in terms of just daily life, right? The kind of mounts that are used around here. There's dog sleds, which you kind of expect. And there's another cool animal that you really wouldn't expect. That's a fun kind of nod to the Tauntaun a little bit from Star Wars. I'm going to keep that one a secret just because I think it's a lot of fun to be surprised by it when you see them being bought or sold.
And then as the general progression of the adventure is, things start in 10 towns and then progress deeper and deeper into like the frozen and wilds of the wilds here. And the stuff that happens as it goes through is also very cool. That's like as much as we can say about it, I think, without spoiling more. But it's worth going out into those. It's going to be really cool to go out into the Icewind Dale proper.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about this adventure right off the bat is there's a new kind of trend in the Dungeons and Dragons world where a lot of folks play D&D not for the combat. They're playing D&D for the fun role playing. They don't really care too much about fighting. Yeah, they'll fight sometimes because it's part of the thing, but they really want to spend their time talking to people and exploring it intellectually in that regard, right? They'll prefer a puzzle to a monster any day. And there are 2 opening quests to lead into this adventure. And one of them is specifically designed to be a combatless, just no combat, intellectual puzzle kind of tie-in, lead-in. And I love that they've included that as an option. You only ever do one. I mean, I guess in theory you could do both, but you're only intended to do
the game wants you to do one.
Pick. And that's great. I love that they've taken the time and the effort to do that, to really cater to that audience. And maybe even if you are very into the combat, you still would like as your first kind of session. Like when you're level 1, do you really want to go charging into a bunch of Yetis? Probably not. You're level 1. Or you probably want that, we just made our characters. We're just figuring each other out. This more RP heavy, let's get into character and figure out how we feel about this.
Let's go. Place. Let's go hang out with some cool nature spirits.
Yeah.
That's the name of the adventure. I think it's called Nature Spirits or something like that. But
it is. Exactly.
Oh, okay. I knew it was close. Jeremy, I feel like that's all we can do on this without getting. I mean, there's great monsters, really cool monsters. The art for the monsters is great.
The
art in this book is gorgeous. Incredible maps. They went back to the old map style.
They went back to their old map style. The maps of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage are gone. We're back to good maps again.
There's some cool magic items. Some cool magic items in here. A lot of which are just spoilies, so we won't do them. I don't know. That's it. I got nothing.
Yeah. Well, actually, I like this. So all of the towns have their own heraldry, and I love that that's just included as something in the module. So like, this is for Bremen, by the way. And so Bremen, there's 150 people that live in Bremen. No one lives in Bremen. But I love that like we have this heraldry, because as a dungeon master now, because they've included this, right? If there's a character from Bremen that your characters run into at some point, right? That your players run into. This is one of the cool ways that you can have that be identifiable to your players as to where they're from, without telling them, "Oh, I'm from Bremen," right? Maybe there are brigands you run into. Maybe I mean, I don't know. I also have not read the whole book, but just very cool, fun little inclusions.
Yeah. I don't have any criticism to this book. It's really good. I'm sure if I went through and did the whole thing, I would have more to say. But just what I've read of it, because I haven't had the time to do the whole thing yet, this is a...
Well, also just trying not to spoil it.
Yeah, that as well.
So
But Vatak was saying, I've been waiting to have something to help me out with implementing the impact of nature and the elements better. This sounds like it may help out a great deal. I think that you're right. I think that this is a really good book for that. This is probably the book for that, as far as 5e adventures go.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it depends. If you're looking for cold Arctic kind of
that's the
stuff,
vibe. That's the vibe.
Yeah, I think that's the direction to go. Oh, here's Bremen, little town. Forgot I had the map. But yeah, if you're looking for that kind of a deal, and you're just looking for the Arctic kind of cold tundra, this is great. If you're looking for more general stuff, there's another book coming out in November called Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which is going to have, to my understanding, much the same plus more stuff, like if you're in a realm that is haunted by ghosts, right, and the realm is just permeated with undead spirit energy, right, or maybe for a Fey crossing, right, the effect of wild Fey magic has infused an area. It will have rules for things like that. So if that's what you're kind of thinking of, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything will also have that, and I imagine they'll include these kind of rules as well. But Pete, you want to talk a little bit about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything?
Just in general? Yeah. Do you want to talk about the whole book? Do you want to wait to talk about the whole book until we got it, or do you want to just a quick overview? I guess
we talked a little bit about what's going to be in it last week, but just summary.
It's going to be the first major rules supplement since Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So this book is a very big deal, the biggest deal since Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it's got tons of cool stuff in it. It's got a bunch of new subclasses. That's going to be the biggest thing for players. There's a huge stack of subclasses. There's going to be some more magic items. There's going to be, I think they're putting the magic tattoos in, right?
Yep, magic tattoos are going to be in there.
Magic tattoos, a bunch of new puzzles, just puzzle design for 5e, created by someone apparently who's an expert specifically in puzzle design. And I'm personally really excited for that. And anything else you can think of that's big in the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there'll be alternative character origin rules. So if you want to play an orc, maybe that doesn't have a -2 intelligence, you want to be an orc wizard. Like, yeah, my orc wasn't raised in a bloodthirsty tribe. I was raised by humans in this town. There's going to be rules for how you can make that work. So really awesome book. I'm super excited about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Yeah,
it's going to have the environmental stuff like we mentioned a minute ago. But
lets you make the character you want to make rather than the one that's kind of assumed by the lore in a lot of places, which is something that 5e has needed for a long time.
So what we have here, Pete, is
preview content.
Preview content. This was released by Wizards of the Coast during their big event that they were doing the other week, their D&D celebration. And this is a preview of what's going to be, or one of the subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This is specifically the Genie, which is an otherworldly patron for the Warlock. And they have a disclaimer here saying it's subject to change prior to publication. The adventures, the book is released in a month and a half. I don't know how many more changes they're going to have.
It's just going to come back. No features are going to be the same. All different.
That would be wild, especially with the Genie, because I really like. But you want to talk about the Genie?
Yeah. You've made a pact with one of the rarest kinds of genie, a noble genie. Such entities rule vast fiefs on the elemental planes and have great influence over lesser genies and elemental creatures. Noble genies are varied in their motivations, but most are arrogant and wield power that rivals that of lesser deities. They delight in turning the table on mortals who often bind genies into servitude and readily enter into pacts that expand their reach. So you choose your patron's kind or determine it randomly using the genie kind table. In 5e, there's 4 different kinds of genies for each of the elemental planes, and this subclass kind of ties into that theme, giving you the choice of what elemental plane your particular genie hails from, be it a Dao, a Jin from the air, a Dao from earth, an Afriti of the elemental plane of fire, or a Marid of the elemental plane of water. And you also get to pick your genie's vessel here. Do you want to do that, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, before we dive into that, I just want to quickly respond. Vaytek had a comment in the chat. It sounds like the first book that's going to align with D&D's push to be more open in terms of their content, of breaking what may be harmful stereotypes or tired tropes that are maybe a bit lazy or outdated. Yeah, I'm not sure they're necessarily lazy or outdated necessarily. It's just 5e was designed on a very specific Western fantasy. And that's what it currently does. I think that I'm with you. It's definitely being a lot more open. And I definitely
Which
agree
can only be a good thing for 5e. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's gonna let you. I mean, you could already do this just by homebrewing it. Like I've been doing that since since I started playing 5e. Like,
but it's nice that the game is empowering you to do that and not.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's definitely people that I know aren't making those choices because it's well that's not what orcs are because the orcs are that, and I can't do like if they want to do something else, you know.
Yeah, well, it's generic Western fantasy versus any fantasy game you want, and I'll take, I'll take any fantasy game I want any day. But yeah, I totally agree, Vaytek. This is only a good thing for the game, and I'm very happy it's coming out. But yeah, the genie's vessel. Your patron grants you a magical vessel that grants you a measure of the genie's power. The vessel is a tiny object that you can use as a spellcasting focus for your warlock spells, and you decide what the object is, or can determine it randomly by rolling on the genie's vessel table. And it gives you your pretty classic oil lamp, like from Aladdin.
Yeah, I mean that's the one. It's gotta be, right?
Yeah, Urn's really interesting. I wonder.
That's cool for an Afriti kind of.
What's in the urn?
I like it for an Afriti.
Yeah. A ring with a compartment. I think that works really well. A stoppered bottle, a hollow statuette, an ornate lantern, or any number of other things you can dream of.
You get an expanded spell list, as all warlocks do. But the kind of unique thing about your expanded spell list is each of you get one spell for being a genie, which is at first, second, third, fourth, fifth level. You get Detect Evil and Good, Phantasmal Force, Create Food and Water, Phantasmal Killer, and Creation. Especially they're going into that create aspect of just the genie conjuring things for you. But depending on what genie you picked, you get a different suite of elemental abilities that are appropriate for that genie. So if you took the Marid, the water genie, you get some ice spells like Cone of Cold. The fire genie gets things like Flame Strike and Fireball. The Afriti does. And then at 9th level, this is the first warlock to break this convention ever. You get the spell Wish added to your choices for a 9th level spell, for 9th level spells. And that is a very important thing to add on there because it's one of the biggest things that the previous genie was missing was access to Wish.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad that that's included. That's all pretty standard except for that Wish, which is a great choice. And then you want to start with a Bottled Respite here, Jeremy. Yeah, so bottled respite or respite. I'm never sure how to actually pronounce that. Yeah, these are one of the 2 ways that while you're touching your genie's vessel, you can use them. And I think you also get these at 3rd level, right?
Yes.
Yeah, or at 1st level.
Yeah.
And bottled respite. As an action, you can magically vanish and enter your vessel, which remains in the space that you left. The interior of the vessel is an extra-dimensional space in the shape of a 20-foot radius cylinder, 20 feet high, and resembles your vessel. The interior is comfortably appointed with cushions and low tables, and is a comfortable temperature. While inside, you can hear the area around your vessel as if you were in the space, and you can remain inside the vessel a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus. If you exit the vessel early, if you use a bonus action to leave, if you die, or if the vessel is destroyed. And when you exit the vessel, you appear in an unoccupied space closest to it, Any objects left in the vessel remain there until carried out, and if the vessel is destroyed, every object stored there harmlessly appears in an unoccupied space closest to the vessel's former space. Once you enter the vessel, you can't enter it again until you finish a long rest. What?
It's a very complicated feature, which essentially what it does is you get a cool little genie house you can go into for a bit when you want to just mellow out.
Yeah, and I actually have some thoughts about that, but Pete, you want to read Genie's Wrath first?
Sure. Once during each of your turns, when you hit with an attack roll, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to your proficiency bonus. The type of this damage is determined by your patron: bludgeoning, thunder, fire, or cold, depending on which genie. The vessel's AC equals your spell save DC. It's hit. Oh, what this is tying into.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and now this is generic. It's a little poorly organized, but yeah. So the vessel's AC is equal to your spell save DC, and its hit points equal to your warlock level plus proficiency bonus, and it is immune to poison and psychic damage. If the vessel is destroyed, or if you lose it, you can perform 1 hour ceremony to receive a replacement from your patron, and it can perform during a short or long rest, and the previous vessel is destroyed if it still exists. The vessel vanishes in a flare of elemental power when you die. Pete, I realized if you're just holding this and get hit by like a fireball, your vessel is trashed. Because there's nothing about this that like...
Yeah, that's true, but like...
Yeah, like I think that needs to... That's something that actually should be...
That's true, but also like...
Fireball only targets creatures.
I think it's fine anyway, even if it didn't, because no one will play it that way. You know, like, just like, oh, it's under my shirt where it has total cover.
Yeah, Shatter only targets creatures, so maybe it's, well...
But everything targets everything, but really I think that's going to be a... I don't know, I think it's...
Actually, no, you're right, because the effects that damage, like, objects say that aren't being held or carried. Yeah. Like Shatter. Okay, so maybe it's fine. I was just suddenly, I was reading it, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, man, I hope that is addressed somewhere. Yeah, a hollow book instead of a bookshelf leads to a secret passage. It's a secret space in the book. I like that very much. Both-sided guy. I love the idea of like one of my players having that and being like, ah, yes, as you open the book, you see a very tiny lounge and a very tiny character. Hello.
But anyway, I like both of these. These are, I think, kind of where they were before, right?
Yeah, I don't think any of this has really changed. Genie's Wrath may have been, no. Yeah, I don't know.
Elemental Gift. You begin to take on characteristics of your patron's kind. You now have resistance to a damage type determined by your patron's kind. So the same as before. And in addition, as a bonus action, you can give yourself a flying speed of 30 feet that lasts for 10 minutes, during which you can hover. You can use this bonus action number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. That's a very powerful flight for 6th level.
Yeah, it's very, very strong. I love it, but it's very strong. I guess how different is it from the fly spell, right? Which you would also be getting around that level.
The core difference is that it doesn't. You can fly without the concentration.
You can use it multiple times. Doesn't require concentration.
It's a bonus action.
Yeah. You can hover.
Yeah, there's a lot actually that's different.
It's very, very good. Maybe
it's not as fast.
Good, but
I don't know. Like, and also lasting for 10 minutes seems short, but really everything that you need to do with a flight can usually be done in 10 minutes. So I don't know. It's good, but I like it a lot, so it's kind of fine in my opinion. But we'll see. And the 1st level feature isn't that powerful. An extra proficiency bonus of damage to your Eldritch Blast is really what it comes down to. Which I guess actually is really... Oh, it's only once during each of your turns. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's that big of a deal. So, you want to do Sanctuary Vessel?
Yeah! Sanctuary Vessel. When you enter your Genie's Vessel via the Bottled Respite feature, you can now choose up to 5 willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you, and the chosen creatures are drawn into the vessel with you. As a bonus action, you can eject a number of creatures from the vessel, any number of creatures from the vessel, and everyone is ejected if you leave or if the vessel is destroyed. In addition, anyone, including you, who remains in the vessel for at least 10 minutes, gains the benefits of a short rest, and anyone can add your proficiency bonus to the number of hit points they regain if they spend any hit dice as part of the short rest there. Awesome feature. Just love it. Top notch. This is like, I think the subclass is overpowered, but I don't care because it's so good. You know what I mean?
Yes. I don't think it's.
The one qualm I'm kind of having is like a ring with a compartment. Like that's how small this can be. I feel like there are like super obvious benefits to being like, yeah, it's a ring, and I'm gonna put it on the windowsill of like this person I want to spy on, and they'll never notice it. You know, versus like an ornate lantern where it's super out of place.
Yeah, there's truth to that. I mean, it's because the genie of the ring is kind of a thing. I feel like, but
Yeah, well, it's just a note because chat's mentioning it now, right? Like, well, if you have a trained cat and you put the ring on their collar,
but then you're not. You have to be touching the vessel to use it. So I guess you could just have the cat hold it and then. Yeah, I don't know. That seems like out of the spirit of the feature, but I guess technically it does work the way it's phrased.
yeah, it's just a little, just a note, just something to consider if you're a dungeon master and you're one of your characters is running this, that they may try some shenanigans.
And it's like it's good, but the combat like efficacy of this is just you just drop the ring on the ground, and then the bad guy comes over and smashes your ring, and then you don't have your feature. Like,
yeah, the combat efficacy never doesn't matter for a warlock though. They got Eldritch Blast, they're fine.
The limited wish. You entreat your patron to grant you a small wish.
I'm sorry. These are big ass Flava Flav rings.
Yeah, I guess they could be.
Maybe.
They say Flava Flav on them. As an action, you can speak your desire to your genie's vessel, requesting the effect of one spell that is 6th level or lower and has a casting time of 1 action. The spell can be from any class's spell list, and you don't need to meet the requirements of that spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect as a part of this action. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish 1d4 long rests. Was the 1d4 long rest the original?
Yeah, it was.
I like it. I just was curious.
Yeah,
I don't know. This seems pretty identical.
Yeah,
I liked it the first time, and I still like it.
I still wish it had like. I wish it had the leniency that Wish did of allowing like minor effects that just aren't spells.
Yeah, I can understand why it doesn't, but like
there's a caveat on this of no, all the spells of 6th level or lower, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, I wish I could just be like, hey, I want a treehouse. You know?
Try making that wish and see how it goes.
Yeah, right. Like, I wish it had a little bit. I wish.
That's what I was saying.
I wish it had a little bit more leniency for more generic stuff like that, where it's like, I mean, how much? What level spell is summon treehouse? Right, that can't be above a 6th level spell.
Anyway, this is a good genie. It's the same one. I liked the genie before, and I like it here still.
Yeah, I don't think it was changed at all from the Unearthed Arcana. And speaking of which, if you've been following the Unearthed Arcana series, what was I saying? All of the subclasses that are going to be in this book have been through Unearthed Arcana. Every one. So I fully expect this to have the final psionics in there too, which I'm very antsy about. But Pete, we should talk now about the other one that they have released.
And this one I think is going to be more changed. I hope it's more changed at least.
You wanna lead us in with the path of wild magic for barbarians and maybe what it used to.
I was going to say, I'd love to do so. Many places in the multiverse abound with beauty, intense emotion, and rampant magic. The Feywild, the upper planes, and other realms of supernatural power radiate with such forces and can profoundly influence people. As folk of deep feeling, barbarians are especially susceptible to these wild influences, with some barbarians being transformed by the magic. These magic-suffused barbarians walk the path of wild magic. Elf, tiefling, Asimar, and Ganassi barbarians often seek this path, eager to manifest the otherworldly magic of their ancestors. Which, right off the bat, it's a much better description of what a wild magic barbarian is before, than which was just like a barbarian that had been in the Feywild was kind of the original version of it. So I really like this one.
Yeah, they really had a weak sauce kind of description of what this was in the Unearthed Arcana, and this is a much more cohesive take. I really like it. I'll start us with wild magic awareness, or magic awareness rather. As an action, you can open your awareness to the presence of concentrated magic. Until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any spell or magic item within 60 feet of you that isn't behind total cover. And when you sense a spell, you learn which school of magic it belongs to. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. I like it. I think this used to be Detect Magic on the Feywild Barbarian.
It was, and I'm curious if this phrasing is what they wish Detect Magic was.
They probably do. They probably do.
It's better, because really that's what you want Detect Magic to be, is detecting spells, and not just like, the air around you is magic. Although that is something I actually kind of like about Detect Magic, is that it gives a lot of narrative freedom. But that's another conversation, I guess. Anyway, that's a cool feature.
Also, this isn't a spell, which is important because barbarians can't cast spells while raging, and that was always a problem for the barbarian within the context of the Path of the Wild Soul is what it used to be, barbarian. Yeah. They're Feywild one. So,
Wild Surge is the next one, and this is the core feature of this barbarian. The magic energy roiling inside of you sometimes erupts from you. When you enter your rage, roll the wild magic table to determine the magical effect produced. And it uses a DC based on your Constitution modifier, which makes sense for barbarians. Do you want to skip to this wild magic table now?
I was thinking we can come back to that, because that's kind of like the meat and potatoes of this.
Okay, we'll see if it's relevant for anything that happens from here on.
At 6th level, you get Bolstering Magic. You can harness your wild magic to bolster yourself or a companion. As an action, you can touch one creature, which can be yourself, and confer one of the following benefits of your choice to that creature. For 10 minutes, the creature can roll a d3 whenever making an attack roll or ability check, and add the number rolled to the d20. That was a typo. That's definitely a d4. And then roll a d3. The creature regains one expended spell slot, the level of which equals the number rolled or lower the creature's choice. Once a creature receives this benefit, that creature can't receive it again until after a long rest. And you can take this action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain expended uses at the end of a long rest. And this was like kind of similar to what was in the Honest Arcana before, except the Honest Arcana had them at D4s.
Are you sure it's not intentionally a D3 and they want you to do halvesies on a D6?
If this is a D3, I don't even know. That's wild. I mean, it's more balanced, but like, they're not real dice.
Jesus. I hope that it's not. They're not trying to add a D3 to the standard 7 dice. Like, what?
Well, that way they can sell their new dice sets that have D3s in them.
Oh my god. I hope that's not true. We'll see about this D3 thing. I know it's easy to do it by just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, but still, I don't know how I feel about that.
I actually don't dig this feature.
Yeah, I don't like the feature either.
I think it's better than they had it in the Honest Arcana, because they added this other effect when they, for like non-spellcasters of how you can use it. But like,
it just doesn't really
feel right to me. This does not feel.
Yeah, it's just not really in the flavor. This feels like you have intense enough control over your magic to be able to like accurately infuse people with it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't really work for me, but it's not imbalanced per se. Let's do Unstable Backlash. When you're imperiled during your rage, the magic within you can lash out. Immediately after you take damage or fail a saving throw while raging, you can use a reaction to roll on the wild magic table and immediately produce the effect rolled. This effect replaces your current wild magic effect. Or fail a saving throw. That's a lot of rolls on this table. So we'll see how the table is to whether or not that's cool.
Just, you get to switch out your effect frequently, is what it looks like.
Which isn't a bad thing necessarily. It just depends on the table.
Controlled Surge is a 14 level feature, and it's whenever you roll on the wild magic table, you can roll the die twice and choose which of the two effects to unleash. If you roll the same number on both die, you can ignore the number and choose any effect on the table. So it's weird. They only have 8 effects for what's supposed to be wild magic, and I think the point here is just you're rolling so much and changing it so much. That's what makes it wild. But the actual list of effects are fairly minimal.
That was one of my issues with it originally, was that it doesn't feel like it just feels like it would grow tired with the same 8 effects over and over again. For something that's supposed to be wild, like the wild magic sorcerer. But do you want to just every other run this thing, Jeremy?
Yeah, sure. And Farky was asking in chat. This is the from the Tasha's Guide to Everything preview. It is the Path of Wild Magic Barbarian.
This is gonna be canon soon.
This is gonna be canon soon. Now it does have the disclaimer: content subject to change prior to publication.
Well,
but again, released in just over a month and a half. So
maybe that 3 will become a 4 again.
We'll see. Kick us off, Pete. What do we got?
Each creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d12 necrotic damage, and you gain 1d12 temporary hit points. Plus your barbarian level. Oh, that was really good. Plus your barbarian level is really good.
This used to be you gain number of hit points equals the damage dealt. Now it's just a flat
1d12
temporary hit.
Yeah.
It's more consistent. I think it's fine.
Yeah. That's really strong, but
it's very strong. You teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect on each of your turns as a bonus action.
That's
okay.
The way I think it always was, and that's my favorite of them. I really like that.
It's actually it's 30 feet now instead of 20 feet, which weird that it was 20 before.
Yep. An intangible spirit, which looks like a flump for a pixie, your choice, appears within 5 feet of one creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. At the end of the current turn, the spirit explodes, and each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 1d6 force damage. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect again, summoning another spirit on each of your turns as a bonus action. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's so specific. Like, you make a flump that explodes every turn.
Well, you used to make 1d4 flumps that exploded. They went in random directions and blew up.
But you couldn't make one every turn, I believe, right?
No, you couldn't. That's an interesting thing. All of these effects seem to have, like, you can redo it again as blah, blah, blah. Or like, not all of them, but many of them do now. Which is interesting. Mind if I move to the next one?
Yeah, take it.
A bolt of light shoots from your chest. Another creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or take 1d6 radiant damage and be blinded until the start of your next turn. Until your rage ends, you can use this effect again on each of your turns as a bonus action.
Number 5, whenever a creature hits you with an attack roll before your rage ends, that creature takes 1d6 force damage as magic lashes out in retribution.
All right. That's very good. Until the rage ends, you are surrounded by multicolored protective lights. You gain a +1 bonus to armor class, and while within 10 feet of you, your allies gain the same bonus.
Ooh. Number 7, flowers and vines temporarily grow around you. Until your rage ends, the ground within 15 feet of you is difficult terrain for your enemies. Interesting that they use the phrasing enemies. It's just...
Yeah.
They're making that a keyword, I guess.
Yeah, I think, I imagine that'll be cleaned up. That'll be one of the things that is probably cleaned up. Magic infuses one weapon you're holding. Until your rage ends, the weapon's damage type changes to force, and it gains light and thrown properties, with a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. If the weapon leaves your hand, the weapon reappears in your hand at the end of the current turn. All right.
I like that one a lot.
These are weird, right? Because I want to go back to this unstable backlash. When you are imperiled, the magic can lash out immediately. When you fail a saving throw, you can use a reaction to roll in the wild map table and instantly produce the effect roll. This effect replaces your current wild map. Okay, cool. So we can't just be like, my weapon is thrown. Now, this other thing that I'll also keep.
I don't know. I actually like this way better than it was.
Yeah, well, the damage is way down. This is way less potent than it used to be.
Yeah, well, it
Um,
used to be also that kind of like it just happens when you start your rage and then that's it. And they've made all of them now just like a consistent effect throughout your rage, which seems a lot more fun. Um,
no, I agree. Also,
the
it needs to do something.
the flum for Pixie one is super weird, and
Yeah,
I
it's
just don't get it. But
really weird.
sure. Um, I don't know. I actually think that this is all right.
Better.
I like this a lot more. I'm not in love with it, but unlike the original version of it, like I would maybe consider playing this at some point. Like,
Yeah, I agree. What's strange to me is the thing that like actually strikes me as probably the most interesting is the bolt of light shoots from your chest thing. I don't know. That like for some reason like works for me, right? In terms of like the wild magic is escaping and whatnot.
yeah, I wish they went more of them in that flavor. Um, I agree. Like,
Well,
well, some of them work. Like the teleport really works well for me too. The flowers and vines work well for me. Um,
mhm. Yeah, that I agree with.
Actually, the retribution works well. Like the protective lights, the flump, the necrotic's
The lights
okay.
work for me actually.
I don't. The one that's the worst, I
Okay,
think.
the weapon infusion is weird. Can
Yeah,
we
the
at least
weapon
say that?
infusion and the spirits. The spirits are the ones that are definitely the most off.
Mm-hmm.
The necrotic and lights, I think, are 3 and 4 for me. Anyway, on the whole, I think this is pretty good. I like it. I'm slightly concerned about the balance of that temporary hit points and getting that frequently with all the rerolls that you get to do on this, because I don't think most tables. I don't know what the intention is, but most tables I don't think would rule that you lose those temporary hit points when you change
Well, they
rage.
refresh.
Well, I'm saying when you
Oh,
change it, because
right.
it doesn't say that you lose them when
Well,
the
this
rage
effect
ends.
replaces your current wild magic effect.
But like you
Man,
gain the temporary hit points, which are a unique thing. It's
yeah.
not like you have temporary hit points while you have this
Well,
effect. It's just you gain temporary hit points.
yeah.
So I think the way it's worded right now, most people would rule that you keep them when it changes, which is really good.
Yeah, it looks. I'm looking at these, and most of them, you're right. They'll say until your rage ends. Oh, but that doesn't. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder if it is intended or not.
Um,
That's
yeah,
still. I mean,
anyway,
that's still one of the best ones.
yeah, I'd say that that's the best one with that,
I
assuming
guess
that
it
it
does
works
run
that way.
around. So maybe
Um,
it's got that drawback.
anyway, this is in a pretty good place, and I like where it ended up. I don't actually really have that much to say about it. They improved it a lot from where it was.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I'm really what do you call it? Happy about
Yeah,
because like we throughout the Unearthed Arcana series, we've seen some really good stuff. We've seen some really questionable stuff
this
as
was
well.
one of the more questionable ones originally.
Well, I'm thinking specifically of uh, the psionics, which I'm pretty sure are going to be in this book
Yep.
at this point. So I'm very excited to see where that comes out, and I'm just excited for a bunch of new content. I know for me, back when Xanathar's Guide to Everything came out, I'd already been playing D&D for a few years, or playing 5e for a few years, and that was just an absolute breath of fresh air. It was wonderful. It was great just having this new content. Sure, it had been existing as Unearthed Arcana for a while, but just having it in a final, polished, like good form was very nice.
I'm
I'm
very
very excited
excited
about
about
that.
this book. Yeah. And
And
Jerry, we're kind of right on time.
yeah, that is a wrap, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening, for talking about Icewind Dale with us. We are super stoked. I mean, I guess is it fair to say I'm stoked for this adventure? It's already out. I'm just excited. It's a good adventure. You should run it. If you're a new DM and you're considering running a game for the first time, this might be a decent one to go on. I think it's a very good one to go on.
Icewind Dale is a recommend from
Yeah.
me and Jeremy. Check it out. It's a good one. And yeah, thank you all for watching tonight. We appreciate you all hanging out and just playing some or I said playing games, but I guess talking about playing games with us
Yeah.
this evening.
And thank you everyone who shared stuff. We also super appreciate you guys being part of our community and sharing your creations on our Discord.
For sure. We're gonna do homework next week. I don't know what it will be yet, but you will find out about it sometime. Probably tomorrow on the later side. Don't expect it in the morning. Expect it like before I
What if
go to
it's like-
bed tomorrow, which might be like after midnight. So
See,
sometime
what if
tomorrow.
what if it's something like really fun, like a shopkeeper NPC?
We can maybe do that.
Anyway, we'll talk about it. Thank everyone for hanging out. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Pete, and this was
And this
Fantasy
is
Labs.
Fantasy Labs.
Usually you
Good
do that
night.
this was, and I do that this is.
I
but we switched
know,
it.
I know.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.